Welcome to the Driven Young podcast with Byron Dempsey, dedicated to educating and inspiring the younger generation around entrepreneurship and practical life skills we aren't taught in school. Created for young people who seek direction in establishing their goals and passions. This podcast provides a platform for discussing the steps taken by professionals in their field related to handling finances, making money online, starting a business, growing a network, and much more. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Do you ever meet those people who just seem to get everything going their way? Sure, they might be better looking, they might have other things going for them, but I guarantee you they're applying the skills from this podcast in everyday life without even knowing it. Welcome back, guys, to the Driven Young podcast. I'm your host, Byron Dempsey, and today we're getting into another awesome conversation. I know I say this every week, but I feel like everyone I've interviewed so far has brought so much value to the table, and this one is no different. Today, I sit down with Nicole Hatherly. Nicole is a leading brand and profile strategist, international keynote speaker, facilitator, published writer, and podcast producer, offering 25 years experience delivering award-winning strategies for iconic international brands. So, why have I brought her on the podcast? Because, as you will hear, despite what I just said, Nicole is a storyteller. And the ability to understand and create stories is so powerful. I can't express how much this will change your life if used correctly. We cover some awesome topics, such as how she got to where she is without going to uni, how taking a 2-week holiday turned into a life-changing opportunity, the power of storytelling and how to tell a simple yet effective story, how to use stories to land your dream job or a degree, the millennial mindset and how we are different from older generations, and way, way more. This is a jam-packed episode, but as usual, my favorite bits will be turned into videos and posted on Instagram and Facebook at Byron Dempsey or at Driven Young Podcast, so feel free to reach out to me there. But for now, over to Nicole. Nicole, welcome so much to the podcast.
Thanks, Byron. I think this is the coolest podcast I've been on yet. This isn't the Dent one, of course.
Yeah, of course. So just before we dive into some awesome strategies around storytelling and everything we're going to get into, can you just give me a rundown of kind of what you do? When you finished high school, what did you do? How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, I can. Well, what I do is I'm a brand strategist and a profile specialist, and also a specialist content expert. Now, that's a big way of saying that I'm a professional storyteller.
Right, yeah.
So really bringing to life positioning brands and thought leaders and people on purpose. So that's what that is. So going back, wow. At high school,
And so you're running your own company for this?
I do run my own company, Brand True North.
Yeah.
And I also speak and present across the globe on these topics of interest that we'll get into as well. And so just making sure that all generations are leveraging each other as well.
Cool. And so when you finished high school, what did you take a gap year? Did you take a year off? Did you jump straight into uni? Yeah. Where did you go after high school?
Really, really good question. My after high school was way by default rather than by design. And I grew up in Canberra, so I didn't really have an urge to go to uni, and so I took a gap year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I moved to Sydney first because I love surfing. So I moved to Sydney, and then I realised I had to make some money. So I got a job.
Expensive city.
It's an expensive city. So I got a job at front office reception at like a 5-star hotel in Manly, and I did the afternoon shift. So I surfed all day, and I worked for mainly double time and a half, and made money and saved it all. So I was living the life.
Amazing.
Then,
and so would you recommend this to people? Because this is something I like to put on people if they're unsure of what they want to do. I think don't rush into uni because it can do more harm than good. Take a year off, kind of relax, earn some money, and then, you can use that year to figure out what you want to do.
Exactly. And I did. I figured out that I could keep learning. And so I didn't go to uni. I kept on with my gap year, and I moved overseas for a couple of years.
All right.
So I was working in project management. So I got really good organisational skills. I was young and hungry to look at businesses and organisations. So I learned a lot about how to organise information and how to do process really well, which is perfect in my business now.
It is. Like, I wish I'd learned that before I started my business.
I know.
Because that's all business really is like systems and processes.
Yeah, and part of our business teaches that as well. So that was super, super valuable if I look back. I fell into that though, and I didn't realise what I wanted to do until I was 28, Byron.
And that's very normal, I think.
I think it's very normal.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't go to uni. I wouldn't have spent the time well or the money. But what I got was these life skills, and I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but I really did when I had to live away from home. And there was no internet then. It was faxes.
Yeah.
You really got to be self-sufficient. And I worked out pretty quickly. It was my storytelling and my excellence in connections, just connecting people, that were really my strengths.
So that's how, because it's like, if you don't go to uni, how do you get a job? How do you get all the stuff? I would say through connections and then building up experience.
And storytelling about
and
yourself.
Storytelling, there you go. And we'll get into that later on, I'm sure. So you went overseas. Yep. How did you have a reason to go overseas?
No, I went for a 2-week vacation and didn't come back for a couple of years.
So I'm assuming you met someone over there.
So met and travelled and met so many people and lived a life that really did enrich what I do now, because I saw some pretty awesome places in the world, and I saw some pretty challenging places in the world, and that really placed purpose in my heart as well for business.
Yeah, amazing. No, that sounds really fun, to be honest. I think there's so much value. I personally learn from experience. Yes. Like, I know some people are really good with books and they learn that way. Me personally, I learn from experience. Sounds like you're a bit of the same.
Yep.
And I definitely recommend to people, if they can figure out which one they learn from early on, then they can decide which pathway they want to take. Yeah. Because if you learn from experience, maybe going to uni isn't right for you. Obviously, if you want to be a doctor or something, you have to.
Absolutely.
But if you're learning from experience, I think just getting a job and kind of opening doors one at a time. So you meet someone, they'll take you here, then you'll go overseas like you did, and you'll get all this experience, and you can leverage that experience to get the next job. I think it was a really, really powerful.
I agree, as long as you don't stay comfortable in that and you're not reliant on others, as long as you have that self-managed understanding and you take some risks.
Of course.
You might stuff it up. I did royally a lot.
But who cares? You're 20 years old or
who cares?
21
You're 20 years old
yeah.
living in Paris. And so, go for it, but be responsible as well for everything you do and the person that you're becoming.
Awesome. That was some great advice. But let's shift into what you've been talking about, which is storytelling.
Yes.
So you specialize in storytelling, which is a very broad, it's like, okay, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
So tell me what you mean by storytelling and why do you think it's important for people to learn storytelling?
Awesome.
Because I think it's crucial.
And you're so good at it.
Thank you.
So storytelling, you're right. It actually means something very different to every single human on this planet, which is incredible. So storytelling for us, from dream time to, bedtime when we were kids, it's how we make sense of the world. There's no other way before we start reading and writing and start engineering what we should think of the world. Storytelling. We've been doing it for eons. So in that vein of storytelling, why it's important is it changes emotions. It drives people, and people out there know that our minds can't really work out what's real and what's not. If we've got a story that moves you to tears, and we've all done that, I'm sure you've done that. Moves you to tears, physiologically, your body doesn't really understand the difference between it not being real. So it moves you viscerally.
Yeah.
That's the power of storytelling. Now, if you want to get something across to someone else, another human, you need a story to do that. And so,
even if it's just we're talking a real small story in like 2 sentences, you can tell a mini story.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be with words. You know this.
Yeah, of course.
You can tell a story with absolutely no words. And this is how transcending the world becomes really fascinating.
Yeah.
And how you kind of navigate the globe. But storytelling has so many different things. And what you say is about 75% of the impact that someone is left by your story.
And I know if you tell something to someone in a story, they're far more likely to listen and remember than if you don't use a story at all. Because I can't think of an example off the top of my head. I'm sure you can. But, you know, storytelling is super powerful when it comes to interviews or just even talking to someone if you want to network them and kind of have them remember you better. If you tell them a story, they're far more likely to remember.
You're absolutely right. It's so human. So you're 20 times more likely to remember a fact if it's wrapped in a story.
There you go, 22
more times. And that's because we remember stories. That's how humans relate to their world. So stories trigger those emotions and they ignite that imagination in everyone. So you're absolutely right. Telling a story about why you're good for this job, getting into uni, whatever you need to pitch for, you need to tell a story that gets into the minds and imagination of the person you're sharing that story with, so you ignite them. They can see themselves in it and they buy into what you're seeing.
Yeah.
It's just transferring a vision.
It's also like, if you imagine, you know, my mum just looking for new grads students for her job, and she had, I think, you know, 400 apply, 40 kind of got through, and then they had 10 interviews.
Yeah.
You've got to stand out. First of all, you should be telling a story in a cover letter. Then when in that interview, how do you stand out? I would say through stories. Obviously, depending how you connect with them, but stories will make a big difference when it comes to getting that job.
Absolutely. So getting that job and that story, you have to know it off by heart and believe it yourself. You can't just tell a story. You can't tell someone else's story. And so it's the rhythm of a story.
Yeah.
It's the beautiful arc that you take someone on.
So what would an example be in an interview?
Yeah, an interview, great question.
Maybe like if we can get an example of what not telling a story is.
Yep.
And an example of saying the same thing, but in terms of a story.
Perfect. So I'll go back to how to tell a story in a job interview or pitching to go to uni, or I'm just working with a incredible young woman. She's pitching today to be school captain. She's shortlisted. Yeah, awesome. So I just going through this with her yesterday. So I'd say this about all of them. Get a story that has a story arc. What was the circumstance of that story? What was your action? And then what was the result? So I call it your cars. Have a couple of cars in your garage.
So circumstance, action, result.
And result. Yeah. So someone will say, and behavioural interviewing is not just for businesses. They do it at uni now. They do it through every job, even if it's a group job interview. I used to do those at CommBank. And we'd have a lot of uni students, so we're looking for grads, and we'd have them all answer these, tell us a time when.
And they do CAR.
And they do CAR.
Circumstance, action, result.
So if a CAR sounds like, so tell us a time when you had an entrepreneurial mind set for something. And a great student will say, okay, well, I was doing a group assignment. There was 4 of us. And what I actually did is I went out and I did blah, 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 da-da-da, and da-da-da, and brought that back. And so as a result, it really took us up into, the top marks.
Bang. Just like that.
Just like that. And the difference with that and someone going, a time. Oh, well, this one time, we did this uni thing. I was part of, and you just goes off.
Because the very first thing I imagine when you said that first one is you said, there's this one time when there's four of us doing a group project. I imagine 4 people sitting down. Yeah. Like I immediately visualize it.
So it's exactly right. It's the same as scene setting. On a dark and stormy night, Tom and Sally were locked in their room, and you go, oh my God, rather than, there was this guy, Tom, and his sister Sally. And
or not even, most people wouldn't even say the names.
Or not even the names.
Just say there's a guy and a girl.
So set the scene, get them locked in, then tell them the what you did, then tell them the result. It's kind of the reveal. Yeah. Get some tension in there. I've got some crackers. I've got a couple of really, really awful stories when someone says to me in a job interview, so tell us when a difficult thing happened at work and how you got over it. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got so many. I'm going to tell you the best one. And I tell like a story. They're all leaning in. They never want it to stop. And I get to the punchline. They're like, oh my God. And then they lean back and look and go, oh, okay, we're in an interview. But they're engaging their stories, and I can tell you it's made me unforgettable. Yeah.
No, I totally imagine it would. Like I've heard these strategies used. Do you know Jim Rohn?
Yes, I do.
I think he's done a really big. He does like really detailed, descriptive stories. Like, so I want you to imagine, you're taking off in your plane. You sit down. The lady comes and does this, and he gets real detailed. You look over and you see the beach, and now you're thinking about how you're going to spend all your time on the beach, and it all links back to like him taking an extra week off or something.
That's it.
And you remember it so heavily.
But he's put you in it. So actually, Byron, it becomes your story.
Yeah.
If you can make the other person a part of that story, if you can consider them wholly and not just talk at them and tell them a whole lot of facts, if you can wrap it up, and you're absolutely right, that storytelling arc is the situation. So this is something before. That call to adventure, that insight, the journey, the challenge I went through, and then the new norm, the victory. And so that arc has been through every single story in the history of time. Think about all the Hollywood blockbusters.
Yeah, we spoke about this with, Jamin Fraser.
Yeah,
he talks about the hero's journey.
Yes.
And because the hero's journey, I think Star Wars is a literal take on it. So the hero gets put in a situation. Luke's parents uncle and auntie get killed. He's forced to do this. He gets a magic sword. He gets a mentor, which is, Obi-Wan, blah, blah, blah. All stories, if you look throughout them, they follow a very similar arc.
That's it.
And so we're just compressing this arc into something that can be said really quickly.
That's a car.
Yeah.
It's the arc. And I love Jamin. One thing, talking about storytelling, Jamin is one of those people that gives you unforgettable stories. And one of the best, we were at a retreat together, and he said, I gave someone some advice. They had a terrible childhood. And he said, I gave them some advice. And we all kind of stopped. And he said that it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Changing your view of
That's
how you
basically what the entire episode we did was about. He just
so,
talked about changing.
Oh my goodness!
He says you're
I've
the
got
storyteller.
Goosebumps. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's changing the narrative. Now you can change a narrative any time in your life, and not changing obviously the circumstances, and not taking away the gravitas of what some people experience, but that narrative is yours.
So I want to keep talking about this, but I also want to see if we can get a few more examples just to
Sure.
really drill it in.
Yeah.
So we've done an interview. Let's say, what about this woman for the school captain?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. She was one of 3 in her school, and she was perplexed as to how to start. How does she pitch herself? And she didn't want to talk about herself. So really, what we did was we talked about not just her and how she was going to lead the school. She started with a great what-if statement, which is, what if nor these other 2 people here were the next leader of the school? What if the next leader of the school was actually you? And then stopped, so we did a bit of drama. But then she went in to say, look, it'd be awesome to be school captain, but really what this 2 minutes gave me the opportunity to do was I reflected on my leadership. So I talk about leadership brand now through the generations. It's not personal brand really anymore, and it's not professional brand. It's your leadership brand.
Yeah.
How do you stand up and stand out, and how do you go first?
And just to clarify, this is kind of like in the business world we're moving into, but the leadership brand is, if you think of someone, like a personal brand is kind of someone who's known. So let's say authors typically.
Correct.
So you think of
Thought
a
leaders.
personal brand in the finance space, you've got the barefoot investor.
Yep.
Like he would be a big brand.
Big brand.
Just for people out there.
Yep. The
you know,
Kardashians.
there you go. That obviously, yeah. So anyone you follow on Instagram with a big following has a brand. But that transfers across into the professional world, as I'm
Correct.
sure people will discover when they enter it.
Yeah. So that professional brand and that personal brand is now really turning into, who are you? What are your strengths? And what are your value? What is the value of someone investing in you? Whether it's your uni, whether it's your first job, whether it's your second or your 40th. So going back to her leadership brand, we really crystallized what her leadership brand was, what it meant for her to be a leader. And I said, great. I said, well, now it doesn't matter if you're school captain or not. You're going to commit to leading that way for the rest of your school life. And she changed, like we did this a couple of weeks ago. So for her speech, she's imploring that everyone reflect on their leadership qualities, how they would lead the school, and without being given a title, take the commitment to lead themselves and be a leader. You don't have to have a title. And so this is what she's pitching today. And it's awesome.
And what was her car in the story?
Yeah, so her car was all about the circumstance that she didn't want to talk about herself and how she was going to lead everyone. And so her action was really to give everyone the opportunity that she just had to really strengthen her confidence, be really clear on her leadership, and then have cut through and impact, whether she was a school captain. So the result is, all of us are going to lead. And if she got the privilege to be school captain, she will lead with everybody else. So that was her car.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
maybe let's run one more situation. I'm trying to think a relevant situation. I think interview is going to be a great one. I think first of all, people should immediately think, if you have any interviews coming up, how can you create a little car? Which is circumstance, action response.
And result.
Oh, result.
Yeah. So if you've got an interview coming up, just think of 3 possible questions that would probably answer maybe 15 to 20 of the behavioural interview questions that they do ask. So be armed with...
why do you want this job?
Be armed with, so tell us more about yourself and be really clear where you're going to start that.
So let's have an example. So tell us more about yourself, circumstance.
Yep.
So I guess let's say they're going for a part-time job.
Yep.
Let's say you're in school or uni and you're going for a part-time job.
Yes. So make it relevant to that job. So if you're going for a part-time job and...
let's say Woolworths.
Okay, you're going to Woolworths.
Yep.
So tell us a bit more about yourself, Nicole. Well, I am... da-da-da years old. I go to da-da-da school, and my local Woolworths is da-da-da. So I've been shopping there with my mum and dad for the last 10 years, and I've loved that experience. What I love so much about the choice of shopping is da-da-da. So I want to have more experience dealing with people, and I think working in Woolworths would definitely give me that one-on-one time with customers. And I love the ethos of the company as well. So what I did is I've gone online and I've had a look at all of the social impact that Woolworths has at this. I can see you've gone from this to this, and as a result, I'm really keen to work with you.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's break that down what you just said. What was the C there?
The circumstance was, why me? Why this? Why now? Why am I here at Woolworths? I don't just want a job. I want to work for Woolworths.
Yeah.
And then the circumstance, and then the action is I went and had a look, and I'm really interested. And because of this, I really believe in that as well. And as a result, I'd like to work here and offer my value as an excellent customer service person.
Awesome. Love it. No, super practical.
So you can car anything.
Yeah.
Geez, that was on the spot. Anyone listening out there? That was not rehearsed.
That's good.
Thanks.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
That's why I get paid. Well, yes, I get to do the good jobs.
But I mean, this comes across in, going for uni, as we've mentioned, job interviews. I think speeches. I think if people can think, if you've got a speech, how can you create a car in your speech?
And I'd also say, don't wait for an opportunity to do this. When I talk about connection, I'm really, really passionate about connecting with others. So in your network, before there's an opportunity, tell people what you want to do more of. So if you're at uni and you're looking for that part-time job, let everyone know exactly what you're looking for, your leadership style, your circumstance, your action, what you're willing to do. And as a result, I'm looking for a job that is on Saturdays, If you know anyone, could you let them know and vouch for me? So because
then you've gone from, if this person can't work with you, sure, that's fine. But now they might get you someone else.
Absolutely.
And so just by that simple shift, you've now gone from, okay, you no chance of working together. And now because you've done that, there's a chance that they might refer someone else to you.
And it's called leveraging your network when you're in the professional arena. But I used to do that as a younger person. I used to have a call to action to everything, come to think about it. I'm like, I'm looking for this. And if you know of anyone, and will you vouch for me?
And sorry, call to action, just to clarify that out there.
A call to action is what you want someone to do with the information you've just told them.
Yep.
So in marketing, a call to action is buy now, join us,
click
see
the link.
more.
Click the link below. Yeah.
But when you're our age, I'd like to think I'm your audience age. When you're your age, that call, don't shy away from that. Give people some information and then lead them to what you want them to do with that information next.
I love this.
That'll do
I
it.
love thinking of, if you're just out there thinking, what can your call to action be? Meaning, if you ever meet someone who would be good to network with, what could you tell them so that they could refer to you?
Can I give you an example?
Yeah, love one.
I was 16 in Canberra and I wanted a job. My first job was in my dad's pharmacy. I was 14 and that was a bit ho-hum, selling medicine to old people who needed medicine. And I thought, and I was in a dance too. I did jazz, ballet and tap for many years. And I thought, I want to do something a little bit different, a little bit better, a little bit out there.
Yeah.
I think I always wanted the stage. And so I started doing call to action to all the people, all the mums and people saying, look, I do dancing. If there's any dancing or a Stedfords, or if there's any dancing at the local shopping centre, I'm in. And then maybe 4 or 5 months later, a number of us were chosen to be cheerleaders for this very new NRL team in Canberra called the Canberra Raiders. So I was one of the first Raiderettes.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's just because you had a call to action.
I had a call to action. I said, this is what I do. These are my skills. This is what I want to do more of. And I knew I wanted to do either dancing or some acting or something. And that's what landed me. I had a call to action. So if you know anyone, and it was through that, someone came back and said, actually, we do.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to think of the downside and the upside. What's a downside of saying that? Really, someone might get a little bit annoyed once, or they'll be like, no, I don't know anyone. And then
Or
they're
they'll
gone.
give you clues. They might say...
But the upside, look at the upside.
I know. It was one of the best jobs, I
So
tell you.
such a small downside for a great upside.
Absolutely.
So if you can come up with your call to action, I'm trying to think of mine actually. It's
Yeah.
not that easy. Sit down and figure out like, what do you want to do? How can you figure out how to get there?
Yeah.
Just by giving a real quick, hey, I'm interested in dance if you know anyone.
Absolutely. Or someone says, what are you doing now? And that's the most common thing. My parents' friends used to say, so, Nick, what are you doing now?
Oh, I know someone in that field. And then it just,
And I go, so interesting. I'm taking a gap year. I'm actually looking for a job in hospitality. And so it was my friend's uncle who I said that to. Got me the job at a 5-star hotel. I think I know someone who's looking. Boom. So I always had and so if you know of anyone, please let me know. Or if you vouch for me, that'd be awesome.
This is I feel it's so small and easy to do, but such a great, and like if you're listening to this, kind of thinking, oh, can I do that? Definitely figure out how you can do it. Because first of all, your network is everything, right? We discussed in the previous episode with Brony about how to get into the creative industry, and she just got in through networking. She went to free events all the time. She was volunteering. It's like, you need to build your network, and if you can build it early on, it's super valuable.
And people just want to wish you well.
And people love working with younger people as well.
And they love doing favors. So give everyone an opportunity to do things for you, and don't think about it as asking them to do something for you. Think about it as giving them an opportunity to help you. They will live on it. So my friend's uncle now is like, I'm the one that got the job back. They love it, especially because it makes them look good to your parents.
Exactly. I got your kid a job at this.
Exactly.
Like, thanks so much.
I tell you what, it's kudos. Yeah, it's free dinners and wine for them for life.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to look at it.
It is.
But another thing I wanted to say that's super relevant to this is there's this video of like Steve Jobs, and he's like, just ask. To how he started Apple, he went to this guy and said, hey, can I come work on your computer chips and boards? And he was like, yeah, sure. And the guy came in. It's like, just ask. So many people, like 80% of people won't even ask. They're too scared to ask. Like, once again, the upside is so huge and the downside is so small.
Yep.
Why would you not ask?
So, perfect. And an example of that is I'm a senior facilitator for an awesome group called the Happiness Concierge. So there's free resources for all everyone on the Driven Young podcast. But we work with UNSW, RMIT and universities actually across Australia. And we're in there perfecting the pitches of uni students. And those pitches always have a piece about their profile. What is out there talking about you, and how do you own that narrative? The next is perceptions. How are you perceived, and how do you want to be perceived, and how do you change it? And the third one is, it's not enough to do that work and no one know about it. It's like building a website and not driving any traffic.
Yeah.
That is your Google AdWords. It's your SEO. If you're not leveraging your networks and people don't know, then it's no use doing all that work beforehand to work out your story. And that is a real aha moment for most people I work with at uni. Once you crack that, you work backwards going, far out. It's just literally having your own website and your own tagline and call to action with no one coming.
Yeah.
And that's up to you. That's where that self-driven taking some risks really comes in the fore.
Amazing. No, I love that. I think it's super valuable. But let's move on. We've got lots to talk about. Millennial mindset. This is something I don't know what it is yet. So I specifically refrained from finding out what it was because I want to hear what it is. Yeah. So you've got this thing called the Millennial mindset. I found in your bio.
Yep.
Tell me what that is.
Yeah. So Millennial mindset is a mindset. So it's not just one. It comes from the Millennial generation. And I know when most people talk about, and I talk about this on stage across Australia, when most people talk about Millennial mindset, you get
yeah, here we go. Lazy, always on their phone.
Right. And now I can say, always on their phone. So too connected. Entitled, super lazy, talk back, have no concept of time
Or manners. Yeah.
or manners, and don't appreciate what they're given. So
These are the cliches.
These are the cliches. And so what's really interesting about the millennial mindset is it's a mindset. And I am absolutely passionate and fully believe that we should all harness the millennial mindset. So what the mindset is, it's a different mindset to mine. I'm an X, Gen X, proud Gen X. And so we've got 3 generations just in the house that I live in. So we've got baby boomer and a Gen Y. And so that millennial mindset isn't about making things cheaper and faster. The millennial mindset is now about, and it's not about more, it's about better. So the millennials is not the lost generation. They are, or you are, the generation that will lead us all back to a future that's sustainable and that we can be proud of.
This is also something we talked about in the last episode. You guys should meet. I should introduce you.
There you go.
But we were just talking about how it's not all. It's heavily almost up to our generation to kind of.
It's all up to your generation.
Fix the earth right now.
Yeah.
Because right now, if we don't do anything, we probably won't last a few hundred years or less.
Yeah.
And so we've got to, and I think we get the opportunity to leave a massive legacy. Let's say in 1,000 years, people will look back and say, we were the generation that prevented the earth from falling apart.
There is a force field, like 2 magnets when you get them wrong and they're pulling apart.
Yeah.
So we've got so there's 5 generations in the workplace now, soon to become 6 when I's come in. So we've got the silent generation because they have to stay at work longer because of superannuation now. Then you've got the baby boomers. Then you've got me, X. Then you've got Y, Z, and I.
Yeah.
So you've got 5 in the workforce now. Wait till I gets in. Now, what happens there is the older generations tell the younger generations what to do.
Yeah.
And that is the problem.
Yeah.
So with the millennial mindset, I have a millennial mindset. I don't have a Gen X mindset, which is really interesting. And I'll tell you how I got that. But with a millennial mindset, we don't want to be told what to do. We want to be asked. We want to be asked, what should we do here?
Yeah.
So what
true.
I'm super passionate about is an intergenerational flow of wisdom. So my storytelling is different to your storytelling, even the way we do it. So older generations have long-winded stories. That's what we used to do. That's all we really had.
You had lots of time.
Yeah, we had lots of time. But with your generation and anyone lower, it's snapshots. It's like these snap bits of information and bytes that for your generation is stories.
Which is why TikTok has got so big.
It's why TikTok's
It's
got so
basically
big.
just snapshot after snapshot after snapshot.
Correct, because that's how you take in your stories. So there's a divide when your parents want to sit you down and go, no, listen to me, son or daughter.
Yeah.
So we have to, we have an analog way of telling stories. We're digital migrants. You're digital natives. So we created the technology, but you guys harnessed it.
Yeah.
We can't get angry at that. You guys just nailed it. We made it.
Yeah.
Right? And so in you harnessing it, your digital minds have to meet our analog hearts. And they have to come together because that storytelling is super important for the human race to keep going.
Definitely.
And for us to change the hearts and minds of the people in power. So this soundbite has to marry this long form. So your digital hearts has to combine with digital minds with our analog hearts. And the intergenerational flow of wisdom is super important. So I need to learn as much as I can from you guys. So the best mentor I've ever had was 24 and I was back then 44. And so he was awesome. I was trying to change a massive technological roadmap in Commonwealth Bank. I was an executive manager and I wrote a white paper. And because it was digital and because it was new, it was the first social community in CommBank, which grew to 80,000 professionals. And so I gave him my white paper. He was 24, head of SEO there, and awesome. And he went, Nick, what are you trying to say? And I went, right, what I'm trying to say is this. And he's like, oh, geez, why don't you just say that then? And he rewrote the paper as a digital native. I'm like, awesome. So then he's been there from the beginning. My company is run by a 25-year-old, Sam. She does everything. And everyone will know Sam. They know me less now. But she manages all the clients, all the time, all the money. She's my millennial boss. She's the best boss I've ever had. And she'll tell me what we need in that digital space. And I meet it with my heart and soul. And she transfers. She's got an old heart and soul, and I've got a very young digital mind. It has to be an intergenerational flow of wisdom?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's super fascinating you say that, because I was kind of talking to my mum the other day just a little bit about politics and stuff. And I was like, I'm excited to see when my generation is 40 and 50 and we're in charge. Like, because it's very easy to say to the government, oh, we want sustainable power and all this stuff, but we don't see how difficult it is. It's going to cost them. We don't see the cost. We don't see all the difficulties. So it's easy to shit on them because like they're not doing this. But I'm not saying I 100% agree that they are doing everything they can. No. But yeah, I think it'll be super fascinating when our generation's in power. Because even then, there's a scandal with in New Zealand about one of Jacinta's top guys was like sexually assaulting someone. It's like, how does this happen? Yeah. I just don't understand how these guys are in here, and I hope that this is going to be changed for the future.
Yeah, intergenerational flow of wisdom is really interesting, because the conundrum for the millennials is, how do you tell stories to capture the older generation's hearts and minds? The conundrum for us older generation is, how do we excite, ignite, and learn from the wisdom that you guys have with the insight that matches our foresight?
Right. Jeez. That was you said that before?
No.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, it sounded really
okay, I'm going to say
smooth.
that.
Yeah.
No, but I am, it's interesting, in a week's time, I'm up at the Gold Coast for the National Franchise Convention. So speaking to over 1,000 owners of Australia's biggest franchisees, so McDonald's to... talking about harnessing the millennial mindset and how for succession planning in their businesses, it's essential. And what you were saying is, when your generation's in power, in 5 years' time, 75% of our workforce are millennials.
Oh, really?
75.
Sorry, when is I feel like it's such a grey...
So it is. You can, every source is a little bit different, but it's from the late 80s to the early 2000s.
So like...
Is Generation Y. Then from the early 2000s to, is it 82, is Gen Z, and then you've got I's till now.
And where do millennials fit in? That's
that's
they're all...
So millennials span Y, Z and I.
Yeah.
And then who knows?
So is everyone... Is someone born yesterday? Are they millennial?
Yeah,
or are they a new generation?
We're still not
sure.
Not sure. I would say the millennial mindset does extend to at least people who are about 10 now, making decisions of their mindset. We don't know what the generation underneath us or underneath that is really going to do. Think, feel. So about 10 is pretty much my age of reason, up to the older Ys.
Yeah, awesome. Going back to what we talked about, the cliches, what do you think of millennials? How accurate do you think they are? What do you think? Because I think to a degree, cliches are cliches for a reason. And I do think there are people out there who are like that.
Yeah.
But I also think there are people, you got like Greta Thunberg, all these millennials who are doing heaps and taking massive advantage of social and all the opportunities we have.
The question, and I love that question, because that's not just generational. That's just in a group. That's a group norm.
Yeah.
You've probably got in every group 40%. If you're looking for a certain type of person, so i.e. a hardworking millennial, or a forward-thinking baby boomer.
Yeah.
You've probably got 40 people that, you've probably got 40 that hit the mark, and there's a percentage of those who are excellent, and 20 that, in between. So when you're looking at these group norms, so looking at categorizing the millennials, the question that I want to see is, how different would that reputation be if we could harness the millennial mindset? What would happen? What if we didn't tell you what to do? What if we asked you what you wanted to do? What if we asked for your wisdom of how to fix this? What if we weren't on an industrial revolution race to the fastest and cheapest version of something?
Yeah.
What if we consulted you on what you thought was the best version for your future and your generation's future? And then this is the crazy one, then what if we totally change the revolutions? Because we're not in the industrial revolution anymore. We're way through the digital revolution.
Yeah.
However, my generation and above are still prizing IQ and EQ.
Yeah.
And now it's DQ and SMQ. So it's all about digital quotient and social media quotient. So why aren't we taking that wisdom from you guys back into across the generations, and rather than impressing our IQ, which is the education system, and EQ, how we want you to feel, what emotions you need to feel for us to connect with you. They're the questions that I would love to see, and how would that change the reputation of millennials?
I also think if you're out here, if we want to give advice to people who want to harness a millennial mindset and help leverage millennials, right? I think having a business or something for purpose. So they're actually working for something that's fulfilling. Thank you water, all the stuff in the community we're a part of.
Can I share a story that happened on Friday?
Yeah, sure.
So funny. So when you are Gen Y, your daily norm is to have a crown. I needed a crown put on my tooth. And so I went to the dentist. And it was great. So I've got my mouth open up, and you can't really see me unless you see me. So I've got my mouth open up. He is on one side and his assistant is on the other. And so we were talking, and he said, is it all right if you have a blue kind of cover? And I went, as a temporary, and I went, no, I've got to do this talk. He said, what's the talk? Millennial mindset. He goes, oh my goodness, can you tell me how I manage these millennials in my business? It's driving me crazy. Alex on my side, is aforementioned millennial. And so I started telling him about what we just talked about. And then he's like, okay, we're going to fit the crown now. So I've got my, and I've got, saliva dripping out. And he's like, so back to those millennials, what year are they born? And the millennial goes, hang on, I'll just go and Google it. He's like, no. And I'm like, no. And so she's like, oh, there you go. That's our span of attention. She didn't even realize I needed suction. But I said to him, I got up and I did have a talk with him, and I said, okay, Amir, what's driving you crazy? He said, I've tried everything to incentivize them. So I said, what have you tried? And he said, I've tried bonuses. I've tried giving them like star charts. And everything he rattled off, I was just smiling, going, oh my goodness. And I said, Amir, they're all the things that you and your generation, he's actually an older millennial, your generation prized. What have you tried that they want? Have you asked them? And Alex on this side is like, no. And I said, what purpose higher than profit has the business got? What can the millennials do that matters in the job? It's not the job. So anyone out there who's looking for millennial workforce and engaging them and mobilizing them, first of all, ask them what they want. Ask them what incentivizes them. Have a purpose over profit so that coming to work matters. And I promise you, when someone asks them what they do, if your business has that, they'll tell them who they work for before they'll say what they do.
Yeah, that's good. Also, I think if people listen to this is what you want to be looking for in a job. If you're looking for if they have these three things, chances are you're going to enjoy it a lot more than a job that doesn't.
Yes.
Especially people love working for a job that has a purpose.
And ask them what they have in place to leverage the millennial learning mindset. So millennials do have a growth mindset. They want to learn. And the aforementioned dentist was saying, I just can't get them engaged. They're here for 3 months. They either leave or they get really bored. And I said, well, what are you doing to engage their learning mindset? It's a different mindset to ours. Ours was a complacent mindset. We knew we had to be in at 9 to 5. We knew what our job was. And if we did our job, our life was outside of work. Their life is work, but it shouldn't feel like that. This is their life isn't their work, but it's so intertwined now.
Yeah.
And how are you going to tell the story of your business and brand that puts a story in their hearts and minds to keep telling? Your story has got to resonate with their values.
Because you want them, when they're out having drinks, to say, I'm working with this amazing guy. Like, he does this every time we do a customer, they give money away, or they
and
do
these
support,
aren't jobs.
whatever it is.
These aren't jobs. These are awesome opportunities.
Yeah. I'm meeting all these people. It's like,
absolutely. They treat me really well.
Yeah.
They ask me what I want to do.
And see we didn't bring up money here.
No, it's so funny. And so I asked Alex, I said, what motivates you? She goes, I like money, but it's not money. He's like, it's not money. I said, I tell you what, Alex, who is an awesome dental assistant when she's suctioning, not when she's Googling. It was hilarious. They go, all these contraptions in my mouth going, And I said, so Alex, What would you think if Amir gave you, 4 weeks and some and paid you over and above what you're doing here to have a look at the website and the UX and the UI, so the user experience and the user interface, and what would intuitively you'd like to see change? Would that be valuable to you, Amir? And he goes, yeah, I don't know anything about websites.
Yeah.
And I said, do you, Alex? She goes, I'd love to do that. So that's the first project that she's going to do that elevates her learning zone.
Awesome. And what would we say to people who, like, let's say Alex is listening and they're in this position that she was in? Should they approach their boss?
Yeah.
Should they say, listen to this podcast?
Yeah. First of all, say, listen to this podcast. Second of all, don't think that you're not being heard. Think that anyone who's a non-millennial doesn't know to listen to you yet.
And it's not your fault.
It's not your fault,
because we
and
can't
it's not their
understand.
fault.
We can't understand how they think.
Yeah. So this is how they went through their work life. So they don't have the tools that you've got. You are so awesomely tooled up.
Yeah, 100%.
So let them know that I'd say another framework, and this is a really good one for giving feed forward to your boss. Instead of going, I don't think you're listening to me and I think you should listen to me. And anyway, this is just a stupid job. No.
Yeah.
You just say, look, and again, like the car, if you can put it in this format of, hey, can we have a chat? Yep. So permission.
Circumstance. Yeah.
Yep. Permission, circumstance. Then circumstance. Hey, I've noticed. And as a result, what's your experience?
Yeah.
Now,
right.
This is a happiness concierge framework that we teach throughout the whole generation.
That would work. That'd be so much more powerful than just other example you gave.
It is so good. So
yeah.
Alex would say to her dentist, Amir, she would say, so I noticed that you're trying to give me bonuses, trying to do this and that, and that you're frustrated that I'm not listening to you. As a result, I don't feel that I'm heard, and I feel I've got a lot of valuable insights, even into, say, the website that I could offer you. What's your experience? It took me to highlight that to him, but it very well could have been Alex in a form of, not a victimhood form, but a form of, hey, I reckon we can do this differently.
Yeah.
How about we flow our wisdom, your analog heart, with my digital mind?
And that's the generational flow you're talking about.
Generational flow. It has to go both ways.
Awesome. No, I love it. Very practical. Just before we wrap up, got one final question.
Yeah.
For everyone listening out there, what would be your one, if you give one piece of advice to the younger generation, could be around anything, could be around storytelling, branding, anything we've just talked about, what would it be? Difficult question, I know.
Oh my goodness. Okay, if it was one thing, this encapsulates a lot.
Yeah.
I would say make every big decision, so where you're going to live, what you're going to do for a job, who you're going to live with, partner with, marry, break up with, all of those big decisions and all the small ones based on the person you want to become, not the person you are at the time of the decision. So decisions aren't hard to make. Decisions, when you've got 2 or more, just look towards the future of the person you want to become and the path that will take you there, not the person you are now. I think that was, and don't live in your comfort zone. Don't live in your panic zone, but live in your learning zone for life. That's what I do.
Awesome.
I still haven't figured out what I want to be when I grow up. making it up as I go, but I know my strengths and I know I'm in the business of storytelling and connection. And I just keep using and growing my skill and making sure there's a purpose behind every piece of business that I'm involved in.
Amazing. I love it. Great advice. Just before we wrap up, where can people find you?
Yeah.
If you said you got some free resources on
Absolutely.
Happiness
So
Concierge.
happinessconcierge.com. There is resources coming out, resources there. We do as much as we can free. So look for the free events that all students can come to around the country.
Which I recommend. Go to as many events as you can as a student.
Yeah.
Because you're going to meet people, you're going to learn. It's just a win-win-win scenario.
Absolutely. We do find work that matters, perfect your pitch, communicating with influence. It's everything that we teach in the universities, but we do as much as we can for free. And that's great. So you can find me on LinkedIn. And I implore everybody listening to have a LinkedIn.
Yep.
Sooner rather than later.
Even if you're 15 or 16, get
absolutely.
a LinkedIn.
Yep. Never too early. And grab me and link me on LinkedIn, and you'll see everything falling off from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks
and maybe
for
we'll have
having
you on
me.
later on.
See you,
Thank you.
Byron.
All right. If you are still here, thank you so much for listening to this entire episode. If you got some value out of it, it would mean the world to me if you left a review on iTunes or shared it with your friends or family. Otherwise, I'll be putting up videos of this episode on Instagram and Facebook. So check it out there at Byron Dempsey or at Driven Young Podcast. And I'll see you on the next